All right, so you sent over this stack of articles about OpenAI's new AI model,
All right.
Strawberry, or O1
Yeah.
as it's officially being called.
Portfolio one, yeah.
And it's
It seems like all the talk is about
yeah.
reasoning AI,
Mm-hmm.
but is it as groundbreaking as everyone's saying?
Right. So
That's what we're going to look at.
we've got a lot of sources here.
This deep dive.
We've got Tom's Guide, Fortune,
Yeah.
PYMNTS, even
Yeah, that is
a skeptical take from Futurism.
I really like that Ars Technica article, that one that quoted
Yeah.
Simon Willison. That was really interesting.
Simon Willis, he's
So reasoning AI. Paint me a picture. Like, what is...
okay. So reasoning AI, think of it this way. Instead of just having the AI give you an answer, imagine if it could show you its work. Okay.
So like a detective, laying out the clues and connecting the dots.
Okay.
That's the promise behind Strawberry and its chain of thought reasoning.
So how does it actually work, though? Is OpenAI being transparent about it?
Well, that's the thing. They're being pretty secretive about the specifics. It's kind of like they're saying, trust us, it reasons.
It seems ironic they're really hyping up the chain of thought as this big advancement in transparency for AI, and yet
Yeah, it's a bit strange.
they don't really want to say how it works.
Right, and Futurism even reported that they're going as far as threatening legal action against users who try to figure out how this reasoning process works.
Wow. Talk about protecting your secrets. You'd think they'd be really eager to show off just how innovative this whole chain of thought reasoning is.
Right.
What are they so worried about?
Well, on their blog, they're saying that it's about maintaining their competitive advantage in the AI field, which makes sense. I mean, it's a fast-moving field.
Yeah. But at what cost?
But you're right, at what cost?
Like, how can we assess its ability, its risks, if we don't know how it works?
Yeah, it's true. It's like if you're judging a chef's dish, but you don't actually know what's in it.
Exactly.
How can you really critique it?
And this lack of transparency, it's causing some waves in the AI community.
Oh, absolutely.
Willison, in that Ars Technica article, he was really calling for a more open approach.
Yeah, he's a big proponent of interpretability, making sure that we can understand how the AI is making decisions.
Which makes sense. If we're going to trust these AIs to do all this stuff for us, especially if it's something important, we need to be able to understand how it's coming to these decisions.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so OpenAI is being very secretive about how Strawberry actually works, but can anyone use it? Can we try it out?
You can, but there are some limitations.
Okay.
Think of it like a free sample.
Okay.
You can try it, but it's a limited time only.
It's just a little taste.
Yeah, you get a little taste.
Okay.
You can try O1 Mini with the free version of ChatGPT, but there are going to be some rate limits on it.
Right.
Even paid subscribers don't get full access. At least that's what Tom's Guide is saying.
Which is interesting because OpenAI is pushing more into the paid business model. Tom's Guide also mentioned they have over 1 million paying users.
Yeah, they're trying to build up excitement,
Right, create a little bit of that.
A little bit of exclusivity.
Exclusivity,
Yes.
exactly. But it begs the question then, who is going to benefit from this technology?
Yeah, who's benefiting?
If they're limiting access like that.
Who's disadvantaged by that?
Exactly. So we've got this very intriguing but very secretive new AI, and it's got limited access.
Right.
But what makes Strawberry different, let's say compared to GPT-4?
Okay.
Its predecessor.
So it's not just about being faster or sounding more human.
Okay.
It's really about a different type of intelligence.
And that's that whole type 1 versus type 2.
Exactly. And I know those terms can be a bit confusing.
Yeah, I was a little confused when I saw that in the articles. Can you break that down a little bit?
Okay, so it comes from psychology, from Daniel Kahneman.
Okay.
He talks about thinking fast and thinking slow in humans.
Okay.
Type 1 thinking is your intuition, like knowing what 2-2 is without even thinking about it.
Okay, so like our gut instinct.
Right.
And the type 2 is more of the...
And type 2 is that deliberate analytical thinking,
Okay.
where you're really thinking through something step by step.
Gotcha.
Now, up until this point, most AIs have really just been operating in that type 1 space.
So they're good at recognizing patterns.
Right. They're really good at recognizing patterns in data.
Okay.
But they're not so good at that really deep, thoughtful reasoning.
They're not thinking things through quite like we are.
Exactly. And that's what makes Strawberries so potentially groundbreaking. This chain of thought reasoning suggests that maybe, just maybe, it's starting to tap into that type 2 thinking.
So we're not just talking about AI that can write a screenplay or answer trivia questions.
Right.
We're talking about AI that could analyze data, that could strategize, that could design complex systems.
You got it.
Okay. This is where it's interesting.
Yeah, gets really interesting.
So it's not just mimicking human language, it's mimicking human problem solving.
And it's doing it a very different way.
Yeah.
Tom's guide gave this great example of a user who asked O1 Mini to design a gamified to-do list app.
Okay.
And instead of just spitting out some code, it actually created this really detailed design document.
Interesting.
It thought about user experience, game mechanics, the whole 9 yards.
So it was like, instead of just building the house, it was creating the blueprint first.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. It's a subtle shift, but it could be really significant in how we think about AI.
Yeah, it really changes things.
It does.
This has me thinking about all the possibilities of AI.
Yeah.
But also about this secrecy around Strawberry.
You're right.
If this kind of thinking really is the future of AI, shouldn't there be more transparency, not less?
It's definitely a valid concern, especially when you think about how big of an impact this technology could have.
Exactly. What if we're talking about AI designing things like complex systems? Shouldn't we want to know exactly how it arrived at its conclusion?
Right.
Like how it weighed different factors, how it dealt with things it maybe didn't expect, you know?
Imagine it in the context of finance, for example. You have an AI that can do this type 2, thinking it could design all these intricate investment strategies. But how can you really assess the risks if you don't know how it made those decisions?
It's like just handing someone the keys to the kingdom without even telling them how to drive.
It would be a big leap of faith for a lot of people. It really highlights this tension between wanting to push AI development as far as it can go, but also making sure we understand it, that it's actually beneficial.
Right.
And not harmful.
Okay, so we've got this AI that's showing us this incredible new kind of reasoning, but it's also being kept very secret.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for us,
Right.
For everyday people, how could Strawberry change things?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to answer that, right.
I think we have to think beyond just what we can use it for right now.
What do you mean?
Well, right now, everybody's focused on what Strawberry can do.
Right. Design this app or solve this problem.
Exactly. But I think the real game changer here is that it might be able to actually learn and adapt its own thinking processes.
So you're talking about that type 2 thinking again, like not just how to solve the problem, but also analyze how it solved it and maybe become a more efficient thinker.
Imagine an AI that's constantly learning and getting better at solving problems. It'd be like having a student who not only aces every test, but figures out the absolute best way to study for them.
So it's not about the result, it's about the process.
It's about the process.
And that could have implications for basically every field out there.
Think about something like medical research.
An AI like this could look at mountains of data.
Right.
Find patterns, develop hypotheses.
Way faster than humans could ever do it.
Light years ahead of us, probably.
And it could maybe even design totally new ways of doing research.
It could change the game completely.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. Climate modeling, urban planning, even art.
It's kind of amazing.
It is pretty mind-blowing.
And a little bit scary at the same time.
It definitely challenges how we think about AI, but it also shows us how important it is to be careful with this technology.
We've got to ask the tough questions now.
Now's the time to do it.
While it's still early.
Absolutely.
Questions about, like you said, transparency, accountability. How do we make sure this is good for everybody?
How do we make sure AI benefits humanity? That's the big question.
It's like we're on the verge of something huge, you know?
It is exciting.
AI that can not only just figure things out, but also maybe even teach itself how to think in new ways.
Yeah.
It's both really cool, but also, I don't know, a little intimidating at the same time.
It definitely changes how we think about intelligence, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And like any big technological change, it comes with its own set of questions.
Well, especially with all this secrecy from OpenAI about how Strawberry works.
Right.
Like, if we're going to really embrace this next level of AI, how do we even make sure we understand it?
Well, and
how do we guide it?
That's the challenge, right? And Simon Willison, in that Ars Technica article, he makes a really good point about how important interpretability is in AI, being able to actually trace the AI's thought process so we understand how it got to that conclusion.
Which seems so important when we're talking about AI being used in fields like medicine or finance or engineering, where the stakes are really high.
Huge stakes.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, Imagine if you have an AI designing a bridge or some new medical treatment.
Right.
You don't want to just trust it blindly.
Right. You want to know why it made the decisions it did?
Exactly. You want to understand its reasoning, what safety protocols it's using.
It's like, I don't know, the difference between just seeing a magic trick
Right.
and then actually understanding how the magician did it.
Yes.
The magic trick is fun,
Mm-hmm.
but when you know how it's done, you really appreciate this.
You appreciate the skill, yeah.
And you also understand any risks involved.
Exactly. And it's not even just about safety, it's also about trust and accountability, you know? Like, if the AI messes up,
Right.
especially if it's something big, we need to be able to figure out why.
Right. Was it bad data or some unforeseen thing that happened?
Exactly.
So let's bring this to our listeners for a second.
Okay.
Let's say I'm trying out this O1 Mini on ChatGPT. What should I be looking out for? Like, what questions should I be asking myself as I'm using it?
That's a great question. I think it's all about being a little skeptical, even when you're impressed, you know?
Okay.
Don't be afraid to question what it comes up with.
Mm-hmm.
Try different prompts.
Okay.
See if you can follow the logic behind its answers.
So like you were saying, don't just be amazed by the magic, figure out how the trick works.
Exactly. And remember, this is still so new.
Right. It's early days.
It's going to have limitations, it's going to have biases, and might even say things that make absolutely no sense sometimes.
Which just reminds us that it's a tool.
It is a tool.
We've got to use it responsibly
Right.
and make sure it's actually a benefit in the end.
We got to guide its development, that's for sure.
For all of us.
Absolutely. And that takes a conversation between researchers, policymakers, and everyday people.
And maybe a little bit more transparency from the folks over at OpenAI wouldn't hurt.
A little kick behind the curtain
Yeah.
would be nice.
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about for today.
A lot to digest.
To all our listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of reasoning AI.
As always, keep those questions coming.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
And until next time,
Stay curious.
happy thinking, everybody.